Until every case is filed, argued, and won. Until people come before profit. Until the wild is truly free. Until our power comes clean and all power is held accountable. As a national legal nonprofit, no one fights more cases for the environment than Earthjustice. Until justice stands for all, we will never rest.
Hello, I'm Jean Meserve. With the UN Climate Conference just days away, The Lancet, the British medical journal, has issued a sobering warning that climate change could have an impact on human health that dwarfs the impact of the coronavirus, and that different communities will be impacted differently. Here with me to discuss the interlocking issues of environmental justice and climate change is Abigail Dillen. She is president of Earthjustice. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jean.
So the Biden administration has said it is launching an all-of-government approach to climate change. How do you feel that environmental justice is essential to U.S. leadership on the issue?
Well, you can't lead on climate or make progress if you aren't taking on the unjust systems that are propelling climate change. When we choose to power this country with oil and gas and coal, we choose inevitably poisoned air and water and ravaged lands, not for everyone, but for too many communities, and they are most often Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities who are now also contending with climate change. And the way that the fossil fuel industry maintains its power, the only way it can operate is if we enforce our health and safety standards unequally. And so what that means is if you're living next to a coal mine or a coal plant or a fracking field or a refinery, a petrochemical plant, you or someone you love has cancer or asthma, and too many people around you are dying too young. That's the devil's bargain that we make with fossil fuels. And that's what we have to change. And as we do, clean energy will become the only alternative. But it won't be enough just to make that shift. We've got to repair and invest in the communities that have been most hard hit by fossil fuels and the communities that are waiting to see what their role in a new economy can be. And as long as there are people who feel that they may be left out or they may lose out in a transition to a clean energy economy, it won't emerge.
So let's make this a little bit more concrete. How does it look like in practice to advance equity and justice in climate policy?
Well, in the next few days and weeks, it looks like passing the Build Back Better Act. We're hearing so much about the political machinations in Congress right now, but we're not hearing enough about what's actually in this package. It is the biggest single thing we could do to advance climate justice in this country. And I'll just give a couple examples. Our transportation sector is now the biggest carbon pollution problem we have. And our freight corridors and our busy ports are some of the most dangerous places in the country to live because they're so polluted. This act would provide the federal funding to switch out the dirty trucks and the polluting port equipment with zero emissions equipment for the future. Same with our city bus fleets, our school buses. Same with the transportation systems that have never worked in low-income communities and communities of color. We can be making massive investments in EV charging infrastructure and making it affordable to actually own an EV. And one particular program that's close to my heart are grants for communities that want to execute their vision for the future. And the reason that communities are so important is because they are driving some of the most profound and fast change in the country. We have the privilege to represent them.
And what else does the Biden administration have to do to deliver on its promises regarding climate and environmental justice? And what are the challenges to doing that?
Well, I think they have to stay true to the commitments they made. The president ran on a platform that centered, for the very first time, climate change, racial injustice, and economic inequality. And that platform resonated because it's real. It's the true problem that we face. And so step one is to get the Build Back Better Act over the finish line. And then it's to really use the full force of the executive branch, the Department of Energy, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Interior, of course, the EPA, to use every power we have to get at fossil fuel pollution and advance the solutions that we have. Our problems right now are not technological, they are political and cultural. And if the government really invests in doing things a different way, we can see change materialize very quickly. I trust Administrator Regan is behind that, particularly bringing in the people who are most impacted by the problems to help fashion the solutions.
This isn't about one administration. This is a long-term issue, a set of long-term problems. Looking in that longer term, what do you see as the opportunities and the priorities?
I think we have to really dig in to belief in local solutions paired with federal action. And I'll give you two examples why. One is that what we're seeing is tribal communities, local communities, nurses, doctors uniting around solutions they know will work for their communities. And when they do that, they're achieving extraordinary things against the odd. But for organizing and litigation in the Pacific Northwest, we would see that region be a fossil fuel hubs facilitating US oil and gas and coal to Asian markets. But for the courageous work of Rise St. James in Louisiana and an incredible coalition in the Gulf South, we would see new petrochemical facilities being built, expanding our carbon footprint, our cancer-causing pollution, and plastics manufacture. So really investing in the climate action that's coming up through the grassroots and creating a system for it to flourish is the opportunity that we have before us now. And I'll leave your audience with one last point. We can't do any of this good work without strong laws and fair courts. And just as we understand that voting rights and reproductive rights depend on the courts, we have to understand that climate progress does too.
Abigail Dillen, president of Earthjustice. And now back to the Washington Post.